इसको उतार लें मास्क को। So today's topic is glenohumeral dislocation. First of all, epidemiology. The shoulder is the most commonly dislocated major joint of the body. Up to 45% of the dislocations. Then anterior dislocation account for the 96% of the cases. Posterior dislocation 2 to 4%. Inferior or luxatio recta and the superior shoulder dislocation are rare one and is 0.5% of the cases. Incidence is 17 per 1 lakh population per year. Incidence peaks for the male in the age of 21 to 30 years, and for the woman it is 61 to 80 years of the age. Recurrence rates in all ages is 50%, but rises to almost 89% in the 14 to 20 year of the age group. Glenohumeral stability depend on the anatomy of the glenohumeral dislocation. That is, the glenohumeral stability depend on the both passive and the active mechanisms. Active mechanism include biceps muscle, long head of the triceps, rotator cuff, and scapular stabilizing muscles. Passive mechanism include इससे बात कर ले passive joint conformity, vacuum effect of the limited joint volume, adhesion and cohesion owing to the presence of the synovial fluid. Scapular inclination for more than 90% of the shoulders. The critical angle of the scapular inclination is between 0 and 30 degree below which the glenohumeral joint is considered unstable and prone to inferior dislocation. So this is the critical scapular angle. Bony restraint, acromion, coracoid, and glenoid fossa. These are the bony restraint. These are the muscles of the rotator cuff. Supraspinatus, subscapularis. This is supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and then teres minor. This is the posterior view, this is the anterior, and this is the superior view. Then passive is the ligamentous and the capsular restraint. Joint capsule redundancy prevents the significant restraint except at the terminal ranges of the motion. Anterior inferior capsule limits the anterior subluxation of the abducted shoulder. Posterior capsule and the teres minor limit the internal rotation. Anterior capsule and the lower subscapularis restrain the abduction and the external rotation. Superior glenohumeral ligament, this is the primary restraint to the inferior translation of the adducted shoulder. Middle glenohumeral ligament, this is a variable, poorly defined or absent in 30%. It limits external rotation at 45 degree of the abduction. Inferior glenohumeral ligament, this consists of three bands, the superior of which is of primary importance to prevent the anterior dislocation of the shoulder. It limits external rotation at 45 to 90 degree of the abduction. Coracohumeral ligament, this is a secondary stabilizer of the inferior translation. Then glenoidal labrum. So these are the ligaments, and this is the anterior capsule, and this is the glenoidal labrum. Then coordinated shoulder motions involve glenohumeral motion, scapulothoracic motion, clavicular and the sternoclavicular motion and acromioclavicular motion. So this picture showing the all the motions. This is glenohumeral, this is the scapulothoracic, and this is the claviculosternal, this is the acromial. So this picture is showing the elevation, depression, posterior view, the protraction, retraction, superior view of the right half of the pectoral girdle. Then this is the upward rotation, downward rotation, posterior from the posterior view. So these are the movement of the scapula and the muscle producing. Pathoanatomy of the shoulder dislocation, stretching or tearing of the capsule, usually of the glenoid, but occasionally of the humerus due to the avulsion of the glenohumeral ligament. So this is the glenohumeral ligament. There is the avulsion of the tear. Then pathoanatomy of the shoulder dislocation, labral damage, that is a Bankart lesion, refer to the avulsion of the anterior inferior labrum of the glenoidal. So this is the Bankart lesion. There is a version of the glenoid rim, labrum of the glenoid rim. So this is the right. It may be associated with the glenoidal rim fracture, that is the Bankart. This is the bony Bankart. Glenoidal rim fracture. So this is found in 40% of the shoulder undergoing surgical intervention. Pathoanatomy of the shoulder dislocation, that is Hill-Sachs lesion. A posterior lateral head defect is caused by an impression fracture on the glenoidal rim. This is seen in 27% of the acute anterior dislocation and 74% of the recurrent anterior dislocations. Shoulder dislocation with associated rotator cuff tear, common in older individuals, that is more than 40 years of the age, and 35% to the 40%. Ultrasound may be considered in patients more than 40 years of the age with a first time dislocation. More than 60 years of the age may be the high as 80%. Beware of inability to lift the arm in an older patient following the dislocation. So Hill-Sachs lesion. This one is the Hill-Sachs lesion. This picture is showing the Hill-Sachs lesion. This is the muscle attached to the. This is the normal one. This is the Hill-Sachs lesion. So Hill-Sachs lesion associated with the anterior dislocation. On dislocation, the posterior aspect of the humeral head, this one, that engages the anterior glenoidal rim. This is the anterior glenoidal rim. Then initiate an impression fracture that can enlarge. Anterior dislocation, most common. This is the anterior dislocation. This is the radiograph showing the anterior dislocation. So anterior dislocation mechanism of injury, 96% cases are there of this one, of the anterior dislocation. Mechanism of injury as a result of the trauma secondary to either direct or indirect forces. Indirect trauma to the upper extremity with the shoulder in abduction, extension and external rotation is the most common mechanism. Direct, anteriorly directed impact to the posterior shoulder may produce an anterior dislocation. Convulsive mechanism and the electrical shock typically produce the posterior shoulder dislocation, but they may also result in an anterior dislocation. Recurrent instability related to the congenital or the acquired laxity or the volitional mechanism may result in the anterior dislocation with minimal trauma. It is helpful to determine the nature and the anterior dislocation clinical evaluation. It is helpful to determine the nature of the trauma, chronicity of the dislocation, pattern of the recurrence with the inciting the events and the presence of laxity or the history of instability in the contralateral shoulder. The patient typically present with the injured shoulder held in a slight abduction and external position. The actually the acutely dislocated shoulder is painful with muscular spasm. Examination typically reveals scarring of the shoulder owing to the relative prominence of the acromion, a relative hollow beneath the acromion posteriorly and palpable mass anteriorly. So this is the picture showing the flattened shoulder with the prominent humeral head. This is the clinical appearance of the shoulder. The forearm is internally rotated, supported by the other hand. Elbow is flexed. A careful neurovascular examination, axillary nerve integrity, deltoid muscle testing is usually not possible, but sensation over the deltoid may be assessed. Deltoid autonomy may be present and should not be confused with the axillary nerve injury. Musculocutaneous nerve integrity can be assessed by the presence of the sensation on the anterolateral forearm. Patient may present after a spontaneous reduction or the reduction in the field. If the patient is not in acute pain, examination may reveal a positive apprehension test in which the passive placement of the shoulder in the provocative position, that is abduction, extension, and external rotation, reproduces the patient's sense of instability and pain. So, this is the technique of testing the axillary nerve function. This picture is showing with the arm abducted and stabilized by the examiner. The patient is asked to abduct the arm. The motor function of the axillary nerve is documented by observing or palpating the deltoid muscle contraction, and this is the method. And the sensory component is shown figure B. The sensory component of the axillary nerve is documented by testing the sensation to the lateral aspect. This is the lateral aspect of the upper arm. This is the apprehension test, figure of the apprehension test. Then evaluation of the injured shoulder in varied degree of the abduction. These are the methods. Trauma series of the affected shoulder. Views taken in the plane of the scapula, anterior posterior, scapular Y, and axillary. Pre-reduction radiograph should be considered in all first-time dislocations, patients over the age of 40 years, and following high-energy trauma, as they have a higher risk of associated fractures. So, technique of obtaining AP and true AP radiograph the shoulder. So, in the AP view, the X-ray actually represent in an oblique view of the shoulder joint. In the true AP, this is the in the AP view, the X-ray actually represent the oblique view of the shoulder, and in the true AP, the X-ray beam is parallel to the joint, so overlap between the humeral head and the glenoidal surface is minimal. So this is the true AP, and this will actually give the joint radiograph. In this, you can judge the joint space. This. Then axillary, the axillary lateral X-ray view. Ideally, the arm is abducted 70 to 90 degree, and the beam is directed superiorly up to the X-ray cassette. Trauma axillary, then trauma auxiliary lateral X-ray position. This one is the trauma auxiliary X-ray position. So this will be you find on the X-ray. So this is the X-ray showing the lateral auxiliary view. Then Walpe auxiliary. If a standard auxiliary cannot be obtained because of pain, the patient may be left in a sling and lean obliquely backward. 45 degree over the cassette. So leaning backward over the cassette at 45-degree angle. The beam is directly chordally orthogonal to the cassette, resulting in an auxiliary view with magnification. So this will be the view. Then West Point auxiliary view. The patient prone with beam directed cephalad to the axilla 25 degree from the horizon, that is 25 degree from the horizontal, then 25 degrees medial, so and 25 degree medial. It provides tangential view of the anterior-inferior glenoidal limb. So this is the X-ray of the West Point auxiliary view. Then striker notch view. The patient is spine with ipsilateral palm on the crown of the head and the elbow pointing straight upward. The X-ray beam is directed 10 degree cephalad aimed at the coracoid. The view, this view can visualize 90% of the posterior lateral humeral right. So this is the striker notch view. Then Hill-Sachs view, the ip, Hill-Sachs view. This radiograph is taken with the shoulder in maximum internal rotation to visualize the posterior lateral defect. This is the scapular view. And computed tomography may be useful in defining humeral head or the glenoid impression fracture, loose bodies, and the anterior labral bony injuries. So that is the bony Bankart. So this is the computer tomography. The single or the double contrast arthrography may be utilized to evaluate the rotator cuff pathological rotator cuff pathological process. Then magnetic resonance imaging may be used to identify the rotator cuff, capsular, and the glenoid labral or Bankart Leon pathological process. Degree of classification. It shows the degree of stability according to dislocation versus subluxation, that is chronology, congenital, acute versus chronic, logged, fixed, and recurrent. Acquired generally from repeated minor injuries, swimming, gymnastic weights, labrum often intact but with capsular laxity, increased glenohumeral joint volume, and subluxation common. Then force, the factor as per the force classification, that's atraumatic, usually owing to the congenital laxity, no injury, often asymptomatic, self-reducing. Then traumatic, usually caused by one major injury, anterior or inferior labrum may be detached, that is Bankart-Leon. Unidirectional, generally requires assistance for reduction. Patient contribution, voluntary versus involuntary. Then according to direction, that is the direction of the head, that is subcoracoid, subglenoid, and interthoracic. So this is subcoracoid dislocation, this is the subglenoid, and this is the subclavicular dislocation. This is uncommon one. Closed reduction, then treatment, non-operative. Closed reduction should be performed after adequate clinical evaluation and administration of the analgesic intra-articular block and or sedation. Traction and counter-traction. Hippocratic technique, this is effective with only one person performing reduction with one foot placed across the axillary fold and onto the chest, while with gentle internal and external rotation with axial traction on the affected extremity. So this is the Hippocratic This is the Hippocratic delivery. Then the Stimson technique. After administration of the analgesic and or sedatives, the patient is placed prone on the stretcher with the affected upper extremity hanging free. The gentle manual traction or 5 pound of weight is applied to the wrist with reduction affected over 15 to 20 minutes. So this is the Stimson maneuver. And the weight is 5 or 10 pound weight is applied on the wrist. Then scapular manipulation technique. The patient is placed prone, similar to the Stimson technique. Once the patient is relaxed, the inferior tip of the scapula is pushed medial, medial and inferior, while the sphenoidal scapula is held stationary. So this is the technique. Then Milch technique. In Milch maneuver, patient spine steady downward traction applied at elbow. First downward traction, then gradual external rotation and abduction of the limb. Cocker, Cocker's maneuver. The humeral head levered on the glenoid, on the anterior glenoid to affect the reduction. This is not recommended because of increased risk of fracture. Post-reduction care include immobilization for the 2 to 5 weeks. A shorter period of immobilization may be used for patients older than 40 years of the age because stiffness of the ipsilateral hand, wrist, elbow and the shoulder tends to complicate treatment. Younger patients with a history of recurrent dislocation may require longer period of immobilization. The therapy should be instituted following mobilization, including increasing degree of shoulder external flexion and abduction as time progresses, accompanied by full active range of motion or to the hand, wrist, and elbow. Irreducible acute anterior dislocation, rare, is usually the result of interposed soft tissue and requires open reduction. Indication for surgery include first-time dislocation in the young active man, soft tissue interposition, displaced greater tuberosity fracture that remains more than 5 mm severely displaced following the joint reduction, and glenoidal rim fracture more than 5 mm in size. Surgery for this stabilization typically involve arthroscopic ligamentous repair of the anterior or inferior labrum, that is Ganglion. Procedures reserved for refractory cases. This is capsular shift, capsulorrhaphy, muscle or tendon transfers, and the bony transfers. Post-operative management typically include the use of the shoulder sling or immobilizer for the according to the type of the stabilization, surgical stabilization. Up to 3 weeks in patients less than 30 years, 2 weeks for the patients 30 to 40 years, and 1 to 2 weeks for the patients more than 50 years of age. Patients are allowed to move the immobilizer 2 to 4 times per day for shoulder, wrist, and hand range of motion exercises. Therapy is aimed at active and passive range of motion and regaining upper extremity strength. Recurrent anterior dislocation related to ligament and the capsular changes. The most common complication after dislocation is recurrent dislocation. Incidence is age 20 year 80 to 92%, lower in non-athletes, age 30 year 60%, age 40 year 10 to 15%. The most recurrences occur within the first 2 years and tend to occur in men. Prognosis is most affected by the age at the time of the initial dislocation. Incidence is unrelated to the length of type or the length of the immobilization. So posterior dislocation. This is the picture showing the posterior dislocation. This is the AP view and this is the lateral view. This is the height of the humerus below glenoid cavity. This is the radiograph, anterior-posterior radiograph. This is the lateral radiograph and through auxiliary view showing the posterior displacement of the head. Incidence 2% 2 to posterior dislocation is glenohumeral dislocation accounts for the 2 to 4% of the shoulder dislocation, 2% of the shoulder injuries, unrecognized by the primary care and the emergency physician within 60 to 80% missed on initial examination. Mechanism of injury, indirect trauma. This is the most common mechanism. The shoulder typically is in the position of adduction, flexion, and internal rotation. Electric shock or convulsive mechanism may produce posterior dislocation owing to the greater muscular force of the internal rotator latissimus dorsi, pectoralis major, and subscapularis compared with the external rotator of the shoulder, intraspinatus, and the teres minimus. Direct trauma, this results from the force application to the anterior shoulder, resulting in posterior translation of the humeral head. Clinical evaluation does not present with striking deformity. The injured upper extremity is typically held in the traditional sling position of the shoulder, internal rotation, and the adduction. These injuries may be missed if a complete radiograph series is not obtained. So this is the position in which the limb is kept in posterior dislocation, arm adducted, elbow flexed, sitting position, unable to externally rotate the shoulder. On examination, the limited external rotation, often less than 0 degree, and limited anterior forward elevation, often less than 90 degree. A palpable mass posterior to the shoulder is noticed. Flattening of the anterior shoulder and the coracoid prominence may be observed. Radiographic evaluation. The trauma series of the fractured shoulder, the AP, scapular Y, and the auxiliary view are taken. A Valpo auxiliary view may be obtained if the patient is unable to position the shoulder for a standard auxiliary view. On standard AP of the shoulder, the signs suggestive of the posterior glenohumeral dislocation include absence of the normal elliptical overlap of the humeral head on the glenoid, the vacant glenoid sign. The glenoid pair partially vacant. Space between the anterior rim and humeral head is more than 6 mm. Trough sign 75%. Impaction fracture of the anterior humeral head caused by the posterior rim of the glenoid, that is the reverse heel sac sign. Loss of profile of humeral neck. The humerus is in full internal rotation, wide in superior oblique inferior glenoid fossa owing to the inferior superior displacement of the dislocated humeral head. Most readily recognized on the auxiliary view, this view may also demonstrate the reverse Hill-Sachs defect. Computerized tomography scan are valuable in assessing the percentages of the humeral head involved with an infection. So this is the showing the posterior dislocation. These are the axis. There is a fracture of the greater tuberosity, lesser tuberosity. Then classification, etiological classification, traumatic, sprain, subluxation, dislocation, recurrent, fixed, unreduced. Atraumatic, voluntary, congenital, acquired due to repeated microtrauma. Anatomical classification, subacromial 98%. The articular surface directed posteriorly with no gross displacement of the humeral head, as in anterior dislocation, lesser tuberosity, typically occupies the glenoid fossa, often associated with an traction fracture on the anterior humeral head. Subglenoid very rare. Humeral head posterior and inferior to the glenoid. Subspinous very rare. Humeral head medial to the acromion and inferior to the spine of the scapula. The treatment, that is non-operative closed reduction, requires full muscle relaxation, sedation and analgesia. The pain from an acute traumatic posterior glenohumeral dislocation is usually greater than with an anterior dislocation and may require general anesthesia for the reduction. With the patient's spine, traction should be applied to the adducted arm in the line of deformity with gentle lifting of the humeral head into the glenoid fossa. The shoulder should not be forced into external rotation because this may result in humeral head fracture if an impaction fracture is locked on the posterior glenoid rim. If pre-reduction radiograph demonstrate an impaction fracture locked on the glenoid rim, axial traction should be accompanied by the lateral traction on the upper arm to unlock the glenoid. Then post-reduction care should consist of sling and swathe with if the shoulder is stable, if shoulder subluxes or redislocates in the sling and swathe, one should consider surgical stabilization with a large anteromedial head defect. Better stability may be achieved with immobilization in the external rotation. External rotation and the deltoid isometric exercises may be performed during the period of immobilization. The discontinuation of the immobilization and aggressive internal and external rotator strengthening program is instituted. These are the answers given post reduction. Indication for the surgery include major displacement of the of an associated lesser tuberosity fracture, a large posterior glenoid fragment, irreducible dislocation, or an impaction fracture on the posterior glenoid preventing reduction, or open dislocation, an anteromedial humeral impaction fracture, that is reverse Hale-Sacklien, 20% to 40% humeral head involvement, transfer the lesser tuberosity with attached subscapularis into the defect. The procedure is called the modified McLaughlin procedure. The greater than 40% humeral head involvement, then hemiarthroplasty. Surgical options include open reduction, infraspinatus muscle tendon application, that is reverse putty-plate procedure, long head of the bicep tendon transfer to the posterior glenoid margin, that is Boyd-Sisk procedure, humeral and the glenoid osteotomies and the capsulorrhaphy. A voluntary dislocation should be treated non-operatively with counseling and the strengthening exercises. Then fracture. These include fracture of the posterior glenoid rim, humeral shaft, lesser and the greater tuberosity and the humeral head. Recurrent dislocation. The incidence is increased with the atraumatic posterior glenohumeral dislocation, large anteromedial humeral head defect resulting from the impaction fracture on the glenoid rim and large posterior glenoid rim fracture. They may require surgical stabilization to prevent recurrence. Neurovascular injury, this is much less common in posterior versus anterior dislocation, but it may include injury to the axillary nerve as it exists the quadrangular space or to the nerve to the infraspinatus, that is branch of the suprascapular nerve as it traverses the spinoglenoid notch. Anterior subluxation, this may result from over tightening posterior structures forcing the humeral head anteriorly. It may cause limited flexion, adduction and internal rotation. Then inferior glenohumeral dislocation, that is luxatio recta. This is the X-ray showing the inferior glenohumeral dislocation. This very rare type injury is more common in elderly individual. It results from the hyperabduction force causing impingement of the neck of the humerus on the acromion, which levers the humeral head out inferiorly. The superior aspect of the articular surface is directly inferiorly and not in contact with the inferior glenoid rib. The humeral shaft is directed superiorly. The rotator cuff avulsion and the tear proctoralis injury, proximal humeral fracture, and the injury to the axillary artery or the brachial plexus are common. And locked inferior dislocation of the glenohumeral joint. So this is locked one dislocation. Clinical evaluation: patient typically present in characteristic salute fashion. So in salute fashion with the humerus locked to in 110 to 160 degree of abduction and forward elevation. Pain is usually severe. The humeral head is typically palpable on the lateral chest wall and axilla. A careful neurovascular examination is essential because neurovascular compromise almost always complicate these distributions. Radiograph evaluation: the trauma series of the fractured shoulder, AP, scapular Y, and axillary view are taken. AP radiograph is typically diagnostic with the inferior dislocation of the humeral head and the superior direction of the humeral shaft along the glenoid margin. Treatment: non-operative reduction may be accomplished by use of the traction, counter-traction maneuver. The axial traction should be performed in the line with the humeral position, superior laterally with the gradual decrease in the shoulder abduction. Counter-traction should be applied with the sheet around the patient in line with the opposite to the traction vector. The arm should be immobilized in a sling for 3 to 6 weeks, depending upon the age of the patient. Older individuals may be immobilized for the shorter period to minimize the shoulder stiffness. Treatment: operative. Occasionally, the dislocation humeral had buttonholes through the inferior capsule and soft tissue envelope, preventing the closed reduction. Open reduction is then indicated with enlarging of the capsular defect and repair of the damaged capsule. Complication: neurovascular complication. This complicates nearly all cases of the inferior glenohumeral dislocations, but it usually recovers following reduction. Then superior glenohumeral dislocation. So this is the superior glenohumeral dislocation. This is very rare and is less common than inferior glenohumeral dislocation. Mechanism of injury: extreme anterior and superior directed forces applied to the adducted upper extremity, such as they fall from the height onto the upper extremity, forces the humeral head superiorly from the glenoid fossa. It is associated with fracture of the acromion, clavicle, coracoid, and the humeral tuberosity, as well as injury to the acromioclavicular joint. Typically, it is accompanied by the soft tissue injury to the rotator cuff, glenohumeral capsule, bicep tendon, and surrounding musculature. Clinical evaluation: patient typically present with the shortened upper extremity held in adduction. Clinical examination typically reveal a palpable humeral head above the level of the acromion. The neurovascular injuries are common and must be ruled out. Radiographic evaluation: trauma series of fractured shoulder, AP, scapular Y, and the axillary view are obtained. AP anteroposterior radiograph is typically diagnostic with dislocation of the humeral head superior to the acromion. Treatment: closed reduction should be attempted with use of analgesic and sedative. Axial traction with counter traction may be applied in an inferior dislocation with lateral traction applied to the upper arm to facilitate the reduction. As with the inferior dislocation, soft tissue injury and associated fractures are common. Irreducible dislocation may require open reduction. Complication, that is, neurovascular complications are usually present and typically represent the traction injuries that resolve with reduction. Thank you.